First question, what's it like trying to keep it secret that you've won the competition?
It was quite hard. I was meant to be on the previous season, so I've been holding it on for so much longer than I think anybody normally would have. But keeping secret that I'd won, quite difficult. Obviously, I told a few friends and family, so they kept me going, being excited for me, and just hold on kind of thing. But I'm glad now that it's finally common knowledge, or at least to those who watch the program. In fact, there's a couple of even family members who didn't know I'd won that have been watching the show, and that I prefer it like that because watching their reaction each week has been really funny. They're obviously getting really excited, compared to people who know what happens. So,
And what prompted you to take part?
I was in a SkyArts in Glasgow, and I seen it was advertised, and I just picked it up, and I thought I'll apply to that. And I think that comes from the tutors at DJ CAD. They really drilled into us there, apply for everything. But I don't know if they quite meant a TV show, but they did always say apply for everything that comes your way, all the competitions, prizes, whatever it is. And I just seen that as one of them. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll apply to that.
And what has been the best bit of taking part?
The best bit about taking part in the program has to have been meeting all the other artists and just being surrounded by so many creative people. I think at the time, that came as like a total godsend. It was not long after COVID as well. So painting for me was always a very solitary profession. I'm in the studio on my own all the time. So taking this and then moving it into a scenario where you're surrounded by people and other people like you that love painting, and I really enjoyed getting to know them. And, it kind of reminded me of university and being back in the studio with all the other artists. So I'd say that, but there's a whole host of things, of course.
Do you think on the back of this that you might find yourself a studio in a complex with other artists around about?
Yeah, I think it's important for your art that you are near other people. And I'm learning how important it is being here, obviously on my own. And I think after all this, it's something that I will probably look towards, not just for the sake of that, but this studio is pretty small, so I need a little bit more space, and I think naturally you have studio neighbours in cities and stuff. So yeah, I would like to do that.
What was it like having to compete with them at the same time?
It was difficult. The whole process of being on the show and painting on camera was daunting, and just that kind of initial nerve of competing with all these people who are right next to you was quite scary, especially for me in the beginning. You do get slightly more used to it, but these other artists were all brilliant in their own ways as well. So if you just go in with the mentality of that I'm just going to enjoy this experience, it is a little more calming. But I was asked quite a few times, I was like, are you competitive today? Are you feeling competitive? And no was always the answer. I have to say no just to stay calm here. But yeah, they were all brilliant, so it made it really hard.
You were wearing headphones and you were slagged about it a bit by Stephen Mangan.
Oh, yeah.
Do you always wear headphones when you're working?
Yeah, I just love listening to music while I paint. I'm always listening to something, occasionally podcasts, but mainly music. And if it's not headphones, then it's playing through a speaker somewhere. Yeah, I think it plays into any kind of creative work. It just helps you continue, and you really get into the flow of it. And the music can I haven't got like an example, but I feel like the music alters what it is you're doing when you're painting. For example, I actually have got an example. When I was on the show, I was listening to, lots of different stuff. But when it was really intense, I had Prodigy on, which is a bit of a, I don't always listen to that, but it's really intense, and it really got me going for the last kind of hour of the show. So it's really useful, and I'm constantly listening to something. I've got a playlist on my computer called Portrait Artist of the Year playlist on Spotify. So yeah, and it's actually amazing to listen to it now in a different context and be like, oh, I remember kind of where I was at this stage. And yeah, it's like a different kind of memory listening to it again.
How would you describe your style of painting?
My style of painting, it's a difficult question because I feel I do so many different things. Normally, if somebody asks, I kind of just palm it off as I'm a figurative painter who won a portrait program, but I can do pretty much a wide variation of things. It's always kind of contemporary figure that is at the forefront of what I do, but I don't like to limit it. I just, I just paint whatever I feel like painting. So it is quite a difficult question, that, but a figurative contemporary painter is just the easiest, broadest way I can put it across.
Which artists have influenced you?
I've so many artists have influenced me. Mainly Justin Mortimer. He's a contemporary figurative painter himself. And it was his process which was so influential to me when I was in university. Seeing how he goes and approaches his paintings and his methodology of work was fascinating at the time, and it was something that I kind of learned from and started using in my own practice to some degree. But obviously not just his work. Jenny Saville for one, Andres Olgado. There's a whole list of artists who have influenced my work, but one key thing they all have in common is they're all figurative painters.
How do you use photography in your work?
So photography plays a key role in pretty much every painting I do. I like to work from photos due to me being a very precise painter, bit of a control freak in that sense, but it's something that I use as a kind of sketchbook phase of any painting I'm about to do. It helps inform me as to what the painting is going to look like. I move that into a digital process. Coming back to Justin Mortimer, is something that I learned from him and watching how he does his paintings, and making digital collage and then transferring that onto the canvas. So obviously it's very important that you get this kind of almost like a guide or like what you intend to do digitally, or at least for me. But when the painting begins, it starts to take on its whole identity on its own, and they're never really the same. Obviously they share strong likeness in areas, but they always differ in some kind of way. But photography helps me get to that point, and I treat it as a stepping stone to the painting.
What's your preferred medium, and what is it about it that you like?
Well, it always has to be oil paint for me, my preferred medium. I've been using it so long, it feels like an extension of me when I'm using it. It makes sense to me so much. I've tried so many other paint, and nothing compares to oil paint. It just has such a quality that no other paint seems to have, and just for that reason alone, I'll always work with it. And it wasn't always like that. I didn't always use it, but once I did make that kind of learning process and start using it, you can't really go back. I'll use other kind of drawing techniques in my work as well, but it's always comes back to oil painting.
Any preferred tools? Are there something that you always have to hand that you can't work without?
Other than a paintbrush, I like to use palette knives every now and then. I've got a kind of brickies trowel that I like to just spread up the canvas every now and then. I like that kind of serendipity that comes with it, an element of chance that you can't control, and I think that plays quite a key role for an interesting painting. These kind of things happening that you can't control. So something that allows me to do that is never too far away from my paintings.
Well, that leads into my next question: are
you a
planner or a happy accidenter?
Yeah, a bit of both. I'm mainly a planner in the beginning phase of the work, but I like to sometimes put down a big sort of abstract beginning to the painting that has absolutely no relation to what I've done digitally or using photos or a drawing in a sketchbook. And that helps to give the painting its own identity, kind of what I was saying earlier. It helps inform the painting itself and give it its own sort of life rather than just sticking to the photograph. So a bit of both, to answer that question.
What can you tell us about your current body of work?
I like to give myself complete freedom in painting or drawing, or just when I'm working in the studio. So with that, I'll do whatever I want, and because I'll do whatever I want, it's hard to determine what the current body of work's about. I like to paint whatever I want and figure it out as I go along. So right now, I'm just taking my influences as they come and trying to create something that's coherent, which is a real challenge for me because I haven't done that too many times thus far. But I'm learning, and right now I'm finding that I'm very influenced by the Scottish climate. I get quite heavy with the seasonal depression sometimes, but it's feeding into my work this year, and that's not something that I've seen before. But as always, it has figures in it, and that's something which is just natural for me to kind of gravitate towards. It's there's always going to be figures involved somewhere or another. But it's turning out to be a lot rather colourful as well, considering it's a kind of dreary inspiration so far. Climate and Scottish weather is not known for its colour.
And the final question, the difficult one: how do you know when a painting is finished?
I think it's just a gut feeling. Sometimes it's hard to know when it is finished, but you always have a feeling of that's starting to kind of achieve what I set out to do. And I think if it's not ticking those boxes that you started the painting with in mind, then maybe it isn't finished. But if it is, or you're 90% there, sometimes it is good to stop, because you can overwork a painting very easily, and it can be quite difficult to stop. And alternatively, it's good to get somebody else in to come and look at your work, and they can sometimes tell you that's done, that's a finished painting. And sometimes you need that, because you get so worked up and involved in what it is you're doing that it's hard to pull yourself away from it. When you're working on a painting for, say, a month, it becomes like your every day, and it becomes like this huge project and your baby in some kind of ways, so sometimes you need pulled away from it.